In a world where everyone is shouting to be heard, the most powerful voice is silence. While most people waste their energy on noise, arguments, and endless chatter, those who master silence rise above it all. They listen deeper, they think clearer, and they move through life with a calm power that others can't ignore. The truth is, silence isn't weakness. It's the ultimate strength. And once you learn to harness it, everything in life begins to flow in your favor. Introduction: the hidden power. Few ever master. What if I told you that one of the most powerful forces in your life cannot be seen, cannot be touched, and cannot be spoken? What if I told you that your greatest weapon in building influence, success, and inner peace is not in the words you say, but in the words you choose not to say? This is the hidden power of silence. Silence is often misunderstood. Most people mistake it for weakness, for emptiness, for passivity. We live in a world that rewards the loudest voice, the fastest opinion, the most constant chatter. From the moment we wake up, we are surrounded by endless noise, notifications buzzing on our phones, breaking news flashing across screens, people debating, complaining, and performing their lives online. Noise has become the background music of modern existence. But here's the truth. The more noise surrounds you, the less power you actually hold. And the more you learn to master silence, the more influence, clarity, and strength you gain. Think about it. The most powerful people in the world, leaders, thinkers, visionaries, are rarely the ones who talk the most. They are the ones who know how to hold their silence. They listen deeply, they observe carefully, and when they do speak, every word lands with weight. Their silence is not emptiness. Their silence is presence. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever been in a room where one person didn't say much, but everyone seemed to notice them? Their calmness made them stand out. Their silence made people curious. That is the power we're about to uncover in this book. You see, silence is not the absence of sound. Silence is the presence of control. It's the ability to hold your ground without being shaken. It's the ability to let others waste their energy in endless chatter while you save yours for decisive action. Silence gives you clarity in confusion, patience in chaos, and authority without force. High achievers know this secret well. They understand that not every thought needs to be spoken, not every argument needs to be answered, not every moment needs to be filled. They master the art of listening more than speaking, pausing more than reacting, and holding back more than showing off. And because of that, they are able to see opportunities others miss. In fact, silence is one of the most underutilized strategies in life. People spend years learning how to speak persuasively, but very few ever learn how to be silent strategically. They chase knowledge, but ignore wisdom. They gather information, but never sitting quiet enough to connect the dots. Silence is the missing key that makes everything else flow in your favor. So what can you expect from this audiobook? This is not just a collection of motivational speeches. This is a practical guide on how to use silence as a weapon, as a shield, and as a compass for your life. Over the next 10 chapters, we will break down silence into specific powers you can apply in your daily journey. You will learn how silence can make you a better communicator by teaching you to listen more deeply than others. You will learn how silence gives you emotional control, allowing you to remain calm when others are consumed by anger or ego. You will learn how silence sharpens your thinking, fuels your creativity, and gives you the space to solve problems that talking cannot. We will explore how silence impacts your relationships, how it can strengthen bonds, heal conflicts, and build trust more than 1,000 words ever could. You will discover how silence is used in the game of power, how it creates authority, respect, and mystery. And finally, you will understand silence not just as a tool, but as a way of life, a daily practice that aligns you with clarity, opportunities, and inner strength. As you listen, I want you to keep one thing in mind. Silence is not about muting your voice forever. It's about knowing when to speak and when not to. It's about choosing depth over noise, precision over repetition, and wisdom over reaction. Silence doesn't take away your power, it multiplies it. By the time you finish this audiobook, You will see silence not as an empty pause, but as a living force. A force that allows you to flow with life instead of fighting against it. A force that transforms the way people perceive you, the way you handle challenges, and the way you walk through the world. The hidden power of silence is waiting for you. And once you master it, everything, your mind, your relationships, your decisions, your future will begin to flow in your favor. Now let's begin. Chapter 1. Silent. The language beyond words. There's a difference between keeping your mouth shut and mastering silence. One is weakness. The other is power. Too many people confuse the two. They think silence is just about staying quiet, avoiding conflict, or having nothing to say. But real silence, the kind that shapes destinies and commands respect, is not passive. It is active. It is intentional. It is a language all by itself. Think about it. Silence communicates more than words ever could. A pause in the middle of a heated argument can say, "I will not let this shake me." A steady silence in a negotiation can say, "I know my value and I don't need to beg." A moment of quiet in a relationship can say, "I care enough to listen." Silence, when mastered, is not empty. It is full. Now let's break this down. Quiet versus silence. Being quiet is about holding your tongue because you're afraid to speak. Silence, on the other hand, is about holding your tongue because you choose not to speak. Quiet hides. Silence reveals. Quiet avoids. Silence positions. Quiet is weakness. Silence is strength. When you are just quiet, the world may overlook you. But when you carry silence with presence and intention, the world notices you, even when you haven't said a word. Let me give you an example. Imagine you walk into a meeting where everyone is talking over each other, trying to impress the boss, trying to make their voices heard. And then there's one person sitting calmly, speaking only when necessary. That person is not drowned in the noise. That person is remembered. Why? Because their silence gave weight to the few words they did choose to speak. Silence is not about shrinking. Silence is about standing tall without needing to prove it. Silence as a tool of communication. Here's what most people don't realize. Silence communicates on levels words can never reach. It communicates confidence. It communicates patience. It communicates control. In fact, silence can often be more persuasive than speech. Think about a simple pause after you make a statement. That pause makes the listener reflect. It gives weight to your words. It makes your message sink deeper. Too much talking dilutes impact. Silence sharpens it. When you are silent, you also give yourself the power of observation. You see what others miss. You hear what others overlook. People reveal themselves when you stay quiet long enough. Their insecurities, their true intentions, their hidden thoughts. They all come to the surface while you remain calm and silent. That is why silence is not the absence of communication. It is communication at the highest level. Lessons from leaders and thinkers. History is full of powerful figures who understood the language of silence. Take Mahatma Gandhi, for example. Gandhi observed a vow of silence one day each week. He believed that silence brought him mental clarity and inner strength. His silence was not withdrawal. It was preparation. It allowed him to lead millions with calm conviction. Think of Abraham Lincoln. Known for his thoughtful pauses, Lincoln often sat in silence before delivering an answer. People grew to respect his words because they knew he had thought deeply before speaking. His silence gave him authority. Even in modern times, silence is a trademark of influence. Consider Steve Jobs. In his presentations, he would often pause, sometimes for long moments, before unveiling a new product. That silence built suspense. It made the reveal unforgettable. He didn't need endless words. A well-placed silence spoke louder than a speech. Or look at Nelson Mandela. After being imprisoned for 27 years, he emerged with a presence that shook the world. He didn't waste time in bitterness or endless words. His calm, measured silence carried more power than anger ever could. All of these leaders understood something crucial. Silence makes people listen. It draws attention. It creates presence. And most importantly, it allows you to speak less, but say more. Applying the language of silence to your life. So how do you use silence as a tool in your own life? In conversations, don't rush to fill every gap. A pause after someone speaks often encourages them to reveal more. In conflicts, resist the urge to fight every battle with words. Sometimes silence disarms anger faster than shouting ever could. In decision-making, use silence to process before reacting. What you don't say in the heat of the moment may save you from regret later. In leadership, let silence add weight to your words. Speak less often, but when you do, make sure it counts. Remember this: silence is a mirror. It reflects back to others who they are, and it reflects back to you who you are becoming. The truth is, silence is not about suppressing your voice. It's about elevating it. The less you waste words, the more powerful the words you do speak become. That is why silence is the language beyond words, the invisible thread that ties respect, influence, and wisdom together. Master this language, and you won't need to shout to be heard. You won't need to argue to prove your point. You won't need to constantly explain yourself. Your silence will do the talking. And in a noisy world, that kind of presence is unforgettable. Chapter 2. The noise around you versus the calm within you. Have you ever noticed how hard it is to think clearly when the world around you won't stop talking? From the moment you open your eyes in the morning, you are bombarded with sound and stimulation. The alarm clock blares. Your phone lights up with notifications. News headlines shout at you. Social media screams for your attention. By the time you've had your first cup of coffee, you've already been pulled in a dozen different directions. This is the modern condition: endless noise. And I don't just mean literal sound. Noise today is everything that clutters your mind. Opinions, arguments, distractions, comparisons, advertisements, and the constant demand for your attention. Noise has become the invisible cage that keeps people restless, anxious, and unfocused. Why external noise keeps people powerless? Here's the problem. When you let the outside world fill you with noise, you lose touch with your inner world. You lose clarity. You lose control. Think about how most people live today. They scroll endlessly through social media, comparing themselves to strangers. They watch the news, absorbing anger and fear that has nothing to do with their actual lives. They listen to gossip, debates, and criticism, filling their minds with voices that don't build but break. And without realizing it, they let this constant flood of noise dictate their moods, their choices, even their dreams. Noise robs people of focus. It keeps them reactive instead of proactive. When you're drowning in outside chatter, you can't hear your own intuition. You can't see your own path. That's why so many feel powerless. They are ruled by the noise of the world instead of the calm within themselves. The truth is simple. The louder the outside world gets, the more important it becomes to master silence on the inside. How inner silence builds mental clarity. Inner silence is not about escaping the world. It's about rising above it. It's about creating a space inside yourself that the noise can't touch. When you cultivate inner silence, you stop reacting to every distraction. You stop letting other people's opinions decide your mood. You stop living in constant mental traffic. Instead, you begin to think with clarity. You begin to see patterns others can't. You begin to choose wisely instead of reacting blindly. Consider athletes before a big game. They train their bodies, yes, but the greatest also train their minds. They learn how to shut out the crowd, the pressure, the noise, and find stillness within. In that silence, they find their flow. Or think about great inventors and thinkers throughout history. Some of their biggest breakthroughs came not when they were surrounded by chaos, but when they were walking alone, sitting quietly, or reflecting in solitude. Inner silence gave them the clarity that constant noise could never provide. And here's the key. When your mind is silent, your decisions are sharper. Your focus is stronger. Your actions are more aligned. That inner silence becomes a compass guiding you through the noise of life. Techniques to create calm in chaos. Now you might be wondering, how can I create silence in a world that never stops shouting? The answer is not to escape to a mountain or lock yourself in a cabin. It's about building small, powerful practices that bring inner calm no matter where you are. Here are a few techniques you can begin today. The power of the pause. Before reacting to a situation, pause. Take one deep breath. That single moment of silence between stimulus and response can change everything. It prevents regretful words and opens the door to clarity. Digital boundaries. Noise enters your mind through your devices. Set limits. Turn off non-essential notifications. Create screen-free times during your day. Protect your mental space the same way you protect your home from intruders. Morning silence. Ritual before you let the world in, start your day with silence. It could be meditation, prayer, journaling, or simply sitting in quiet reflection. Even 5 minutes can anchor your mind before the noise begins, listening without reacting. In conversations, train yourself to truly listen instead of planning your response. This simple silence not only gives you clarity, but also earns you respect from others. Nature as a reset button. Step outside. Take a walk without headphones. Listen to the natural silence hidden beneath the world's noise. Nature has a way of calming the mind faster than any screen ever could. Controlled breathing. When stress builds, your breath becomes shallow and rushed. Slow it down. Inhale deeply. Exhale slowly. Each breath is a way of reclaiming silence in the middle of chaos. Each of these practices works because they do one thing. They help you hear yourself again. They bring you back from the noise of the world to the calm of your own mind. The silent advantage. Imagine two people facing the same challenge. One is overwhelmed, distracted by opinions, flooded by noise. The other has built a habit of inner silence. Who do you think will make the clearer decision? Who will stay steady under pressure? Who will act with power instead of panic? The answer is obvious. Inner silence is not just peace, it is power. It is the hidden advantage that makes leaders stand out, professionals perform better, and individuals live with more clarity and confidence. Noise is everywhere. That won't change. But here's what can change: your relationship with it. You don't have to be its prisoner. You can be its master. When you learn to silence the noise around you by cultivating the calm within you, life shifts. Decisions become easier. Relationships become smoother. Success becomes more natural. Because when the noise outside is loud but the silence inside is stronger, you win. Chapter 3. Listening deeper. The advantage most people ignore. Most people hear. Very few people listen. That difference is the line between surface-level connections and real influence, between shallow conversations and deep understanding, between being just another voice in the room and being the person everyone trusts. And the key to that difference is silence. Hearing versus listening. Let's start with the basics. Hearing is a physical act. Your ears pick up sounds, words, and noise. Listening, on the other hand, is a choice. It's not just about the words spoken, but about the meaning behind them. It's about tone, pauses, emotion, and even what's left unsaid. Think about the last time you spoke to someone who was clearly distracted, checking their phone, interrupting you, nodding without really paying attention. Technically, they heard you, but they didn't listen, and you felt it. Now think about the last time someone really listened to you. They leaned in. They didn't rush you. They gave you their silence, their full presence. How did that feel? You probably felt valued, understood, maybe even respected. That's the power of listening. How silence makes you a better listener. The secret to true listening is silence. When you're silent, you stop planning your next sentence. You stop trying to prove a point. You stop competing for airtime. Instead, you allow the other person's words to land fully. You observe their body language. You catch the shifts in their voice. You notice the things they hesitate to say. Silence turns you from a passive hearer into an active listener. And here's the irony. When you listen deeply, people start to think you're a great communicator, even though you're talking less. Why? Because communication is not just about what you say. It's about how you make others feel. And nothing makes someone feel more respected than being truly listened to. The benefits of listening in real life. Now let's bring this down to earth. How does listening give you an advantage in real life? 1. In relationships. Relationships thrive not on constant talking, but on genuine listening. Whether it's a spouse, a child, or a close friend, people don't always want solutions. They want understanding. When your partner is venting about a tough day, silence allows you to really hear them instead of jumping in with advice. When your child shares a story, silence helps you catch the emotion behind their words, not just the words themselves. These small acts of listening build trust, deepen connection, and reduce conflict. Sometimes the most healing response you can give isn't a long speech. It's a silent, attentive presence. 2. In business. In business, listening is one of the most underrated power moves. Too many people go into meetings eager to impress with their words, but the person who listens gains the real advantage. Why? Because people reveal their needs, their fears, and their priorities when you let them talk. A client will tell you exactly how to win their business if you're silent long enough to hear it. A colleague will show you their motivations if you give them the space. Even in negotiations, silence is gold. When you make an offer and then stop talking, the other side often reveals more than they intended. Your silence pressures them in ways words cannot. Smart negotiators know the first one to break silence usually loses ground. 3. In leadership, great leaders are not the ones who bark the most orders. They are the ones who listen. Employees, teams, and communities follow leaders who make them feel heard. When a leader practices silence, they invite feedback. They learn the truth instead of just what people think they want to hear. They catch problems early because they're listening instead of lecturing. And when they do speak, their words carry more weight because they are rooted in understanding. Abraham Lincoln once said, "When I'm getting ready to reason with a man, I spend 1/3 of my time thinking about myself and what I am going to say, and 2/3 about him and what he is going to say." That's the power of listening. The silent edge. Here's what most people miss. Listening gives you information, and information gives you power. The person who listens walks away knowing more than the one who just talked. In relationships, that knowledge builds trust. In business, that knowledge builds profit. In leadership, that knowledge builds loyalty. All of it comes from silence, the silence that allows listening to go deeper than words. Practicing deeper listening. So how can you start using silence to become a better listener? Here are a few practical steps. Remove distractions. When someone speaks to you, put the phone down, close the laptop. Show with your silence that they matter. Pause before responding. Don't rush to reply. That short silence shows you're processing, not just reacting. Listen for emotion, not just words. Ask yourself, what is this person really feeling? What are they not saying? Use encouraging silence. Sometimes, if you stay quiet after someone speaks, they'll continue and reveal even more. Reflect back. Summarize what you heard before giving your own thoughts. It proves you weren't just hearing, you were listening. The truth is simple. Silence makes you a better listener, and better listening makes you more effective in every area of life. While others are busy trying to be the loudest voice in the room, you will stand out by being the quietest, but most attentive. Because in the end, the advantage most people ignore is this: the person who listens holds the real power. Chapter 4. The strategic pause, winning without saying a word. Have you ever noticed that sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all? There's a hidden power that most people overlook. It's the pause, the deliberate silence between words, the calm space in a heated argument, the quiet confidence in a negotiation. Used correctly, the pause is more persuasive than any speech. It creates respect, influence, and control without you ever raising your voice. The power of the pause in conversations. Most people are uncomfortable with silence. The moment a conversation goes quiet, they rush to fill the gap. They talk too much, over-explain, or reveal things they didn't need to. That's where the power of the pause comes in. When you learn to pause, you gain control of the conversation. Your words carry more weight. Imagine giving your opinion and then holding silence. That pause forces the other person to reflect. It makes your message sink deeper. It shows that you are confident enough not to beg for approval. Cool. In everyday life, this technique changes how people perceive you. If you're always rushing your words, you sound nervous or unsure. But if you pause, you sound composed, thoughtful, and in control. The pause turns ordinary words into impactful ones. The pause in arguments. Arguments are fueled by speed. Someone attacks, the other person fires back, and before long, both are saying things they regret. But silence breaks the cycle. Imagine someone insults you or raises their voice. Instead of reacting instantly, you pause. That silence throws them off balance. It communicates, I'm not easily shaken. It gives you time to choose a calm, sharp response instead of an emotional one. In fact, sometimes silence itself is the answer. Walking away or refusing to feed the fire can be more powerful than winning the argument with words. Because here's the truth. You don't have to attend every battle you're invited to. The pause gives you freedom to choose wisely. The pause in negotiations. If there's one place where the pause is pure gold, it's in negotiations. Professionals in business, sales, and leadership know this secret. After you state your position, stop talking. Let's say you make an offer and then go silent. Most people hate that silence. They'll fill it by giving away more information, lowering their demand, or revealing their weakness. Your silence pressures them without aggression. Here's a real example. Imagine you're in a salary negotiation. You say, I believe my experience and results are worth a salary of $80,000. Then you stop. No justifications, no nervous chatter, just silence. The other side now feels the weight of your words. They may try to negotiate, but they know you're serious. This works in business deals, sales conversations, even daily decisions. Silence after a statement signals confidence. It tells the other side, I've said what I needed to say. The ball is in your court. How silence creates influence and respect. Why does the pause work so well? Because it shows control. In a world full of chatter, the one who can remain silent demonstrates strength. People lean in when you don't rush. They respect someone who doesn't need to prove themselves with endless words. Silence makes people wonder what you're thinking, and that mystery gives you influence. Think about great speakers. The most memorable ones don't just deliver words nonstop. They use pauses. Martin Luther King Jr., John F. Kennedy, Barack Obama. Each of them understood that silence is part of the message. A well-timed pause makes the audience hang on every word. Even in one-on-one conversations, silence communicates confidence. You don't need to dominate. You don't need to convince. You hold your ground with presence. That quiet assurance makes people trust you more. Practical examples. When to speak and when to remain silent. Job interviews. When asked a tough question, don't rush. Pause, think, then answer. That silence shows composure and makes your response sharper. Business deals. After stating your price or position, stop talking. The pause puts pressure on the other side to respond. Arguments with loved ones. Instead of snapping back immediately, pause. Sometimes silence de-escalates tension faster than words. Public speaking. After delivering an important point, pause. Let it land. The audience will reflect and remember. Daily conversations. Use silence when someone is emotional. Instead of cutting them off or jumping in, stay quiet and listen. Your silence gives them space to open up. The pause is not about manipulation. It's about control. It's about showing that you value quality over quantity, clarity over clutter. It's about knowing that sometimes silence speaks louder than anything you could say. If you master the pause, you will win arguments without fighting, gain respect without demanding it, and influence others without force. Because in the end, silence is not emptiness. It is presence, and presence is power. So the next time you feel the urge to rush, explain, or defend, try pausing instead. Let silence do the heavy lifting. You'll be surprised at how much you gain without saying a word. Chapter 5. Silence and Self-Control. The secret weapon of discipline. Discipline doesn't start in the gym, at the office, or in your schedule. It starts in your mind. And one of the greatest tools for mastering your mind is silence. Think about the moments when discipline matters most. It's not when everything is calm and easy. It's when emotions are high, when anger flares, when frustration builds, when ego tempts you to prove yourself. These are the moments where silence becomes your secret weapon. How silence helps master emotions. Most people believe strength is shown by reacting quickly, snapping back with words, proving a point, or expressing every feeling the moment it arises. But real strength is shown by restraint, by the ability to pause, hold silence, and let emotions settle before you act. When you're silent in the heat of the moment, you give yourself time to think. You create a gap between emotion and action. That gap is where wisdom lives. That gap is where self-control grows. Let's be honest. How many people have ruined relationships, careers, or opportunities because they couldn't keep silent for just a few moments? Words spoken in anger are like arrows shot from a bow. You can never pull them back. But silence gives you the chance to keep that arrow from flying in the first place, turning anger, frustration, and ego into calm action. Silence is not about suppressing emotions. It's about transforming them. When anger rises, silence lets it cool before you respond. When frustration builds, silence allows you to process instead of explode. When ego whispers, defend yourself, prove them wrong, silence says, stay calm, let actions speak louder. Here's a simple truth. Silence is not weakness, it is strategy. In fact, silence often makes your response 10 times more effective because it is calm, clear, and calculated. For example, in a workplace conflict, silence can stop a shouting match from escalating. Instead of reacting emotionally, you pause, think, and then respond in a way that earns respect. In relationships, silence during an argument can prevent regret. Instead of fueling the fire, you allow space for both sides to calm down. That silence often leads to better resolution than hours of yelling ever could. In personal challenges, silence helps you face setbacks with patience instead of panic. Instead of letting frustration control you, you choose calm persistence. This is what discipline looks like in real time. Not always taking immediate action, but choosing the right action at the right time. And silence is the tool that makes this possible. Silence, patience, and long-term success. Here's something most people overlook. Success is not built on quick reactions. It's built on patience, consistency, and long-term thinking. And silence trains all three. When you practice silence, you learn to wait instead of rushing. You learn to observe instead of reacting. You learn to hold back your ego and let results speak for you. Think about investing. The people who win are not the ones who panic and sell the moment the market dips. They are the ones who stay calm, silent, and patient while others lose control. Think about great athletes. They don't let emotions derail them in the middle of competition. They know how to silence doubt, silence distractions, and stay disciplined until the game is over. Well, think about your own life. Every time you hold silence instead of reacting impulsively, you're training yourself in patience. And patience over time becomes the foundation of success. Discipline is not glamorous. It's not always visible. But it's built in those small moments of silence where you choose control over chaos. Practical steps to use silence for self-control. So how can you begin using silence as a tool for discipline in your daily life? The 3-second rule. When emotions rise, pause for 3 seconds before speaking. Often those 3 seconds are all you need to prevent a mistake. Silent journaling. Instead of reacting outwardly, write your emotions down in silence. Let the page absorb your frustration. This transforms emotion into clarity. Coordinate silent walks. Step away when anger or stress builds. A short walk in silence clears the mind faster than arguing ever could. Silent reflection. Before decisions. Before making an important choice, sit in silence for a few minutes. It separates impulse from wisdom. Practice delayed response. In emails, texts, or conversations, don't always respond instantly. Silence creates space to think and respond with discipline. Each of these practices helps you train self-control. Over time, silence becomes second nature. You no longer react from emotion, you respond from strength. Here's the truth, boss. Silence is not just about peace. It's about power. It's about the discipline to master yourself so that no one else can master you. When you can stay silent in anger, you win. When you can stay silent in frustration, you win. When you can stay silent in the face of ego, you win. Because discipline is not built by controlling the world. It's built by controlling yourself. And silence is the weapon that makes it possible. So the next time your emotions demand that you react, remember this. Silence is not your weakness. It is your victory waiting to happen. Chapter 6. Creating space for clarity and creativity. Some of the greatest breakthroughs in history didn't happen in boardrooms, meetings, or crowded offices. They happened in silence. Isaac Newton discovered the laws of gravity not in a noisy laboratory, but in the quiet of the countryside. Albert Einstein often said that his best ideas came during long walks alone. Even Thomas Edison, one of America's greatest inventors, was known to sit in complete silence with a steel ball in his hand, waiting for the moment of inspiration that would strike when the ball dropped. Why is that? Why do the best ideas, the clearest insights, and the most creative sparks come not in chaos, but in silence? The answer is simple. Silence creates space. And in that space, clarity and creativity are born. Silence as a tool for problem solving. When faced with a challenge, most people push harder. They talk more, think faster, and try to force a solution. But the harder you push, the more cluttered your mind becomes. It's like trying to see your reflection in water. You can't see clearly if the surface is disturbed. Only when the water is still does the reflection appear. That's what silence does to your mind. It stills the water. It clears the noise. And in that stillness, answers begin to emerge. Think about it. How many times have you wrestled with a problem all day, only to have the solution come when you were in the shower, driving alone, or lying in bed before sleep? It wasn't the noise that solved it. It was the silence. Problem solving doesn't always require more effort. Sometimes it requires more space. Silence gives your mind the room it needs to connect ideas, to see patterns, and to reveal solutions that talking never could. Why your best ideas come when you're quiet. The human brain is constantly processing information. Even when you're not consciously thinking, your subconscious mind is at work, making connections, sorting memories, and generating ideas. But here's the catch. Your subconscious can only surface its insights when you're quiet enough to hear them. That's why your best ideas often come when you're walking alone, driving in silence, or sitting quietly with no distractions. In those moments, your brain finally has the freedom to wander, to imagine, to innovate. Noise kills creativity. Silence fuels it. This is why writers, artists, musicians, and innovators often retreat into solitude. It's not about escaping people. It's about creating the conditions where inspiration can breathe. For you, silence might not mean disappearing into the woods for weeks. It might be as simple as sitting quietly for 10 minutes a day, turning off the radio during your commute, or setting aside time to reflect before bed. These small windows of silence can unlock creativity that constant noise keeps buried. Daily practices to use silence for inspiration. Now, let's get practical. How do you use silence every day to build clarity and spark creativity? Silent morning start. Before reaching for your phone, start your day in silence. Sit with a notebook, meditate, or simply breathe. This quiet sets the tone for the day and opens the door for ideas before the world interrupts. The 10-minute reset. In the middle of your day, take 10 minutes of complete silence. Step away from screens, conversations, and noise. Use this time to reset, reflect, and let your mind process. Many people are shocked by the clarity they find in just a few minutes of intentional silence. Silent walks. Go for a walk without headphones, podcasts, or calls. Let the silence of nature or the rhythm of your footsteps guide your thoughts. Some of the most creative ideas come during silent walks. Journaling in silence. Keep a journal and write in silence daily, not with music, not with distractions. Just you, the pen, and your thoughts. This practice clears mental clutter and often brings insights you didn't know were inside you. Each evening reflection. Before bed, spend a few minutes in silence reviewing your day. Ask yourself, what did I learn? What could I improve? What ideas came up? That silence before sleep gives your mind space to create while you rest. Silent problem solving. When facing a tough decision, resist the urge to talk it through immediately. Sit in silence first. Write down your thoughts. Give your mind a chance to reveal solutions before outside voices drown them out. The advantage of silent creativity. Here's the truth. Most people never access their full creativity because they never give themselves silence. They chase solutions in noise, but clarity doesn't live there. The advantage goes to the person who creates space. While others are overwhelmed by distractions, you will be finding answers in silence. While others are stuck repeating old patterns, you will be discovering new ideas. In business, this means better strategies. In personal life, it means wiser choices. In creativity, it means breakthroughs that others only dream of. Silence is not wasted time. It is the birthplace of clarity and creativity. The next time you're searching for an answer, stop trying to force it. Step back, be silent. Let the solution rise naturally, the way water becomes clear when it's still. Because in the end, your most powerful ideas will not come from noise. They will come from the silence you create. Chapter 7. Silence in Relationships, Building Deeper Bonds. They say communication is the foundation of every relationship. But here's the part most people miss. Communication is not only about what you say, it's also about what you don't say. In fact, some of the deepest bonds are built not through words, but through silence. Think about it. Have you ever sat with someone you love, your partner, your child, or even your best friend, and felt a sense of connection without saying a single word? That's the power of silence in relationships. It doesn't just fill the gaps between conversations. It creates space for healing, trust, and love to grow stronger. Why silence can heal conflicts. Arguments are a normal part of human connection. Couples fight, families disagree, friends fall out. But here's the truth. Most conflicts don't come from differences in opinion. They come from the inability to stop talking long enough to listen. When tempers flare, words are weapons. They're spoken fast, sharp, and often without thought. And once they're released, they leave scars. But silence can stop the bleeding. Instead of escalating a fight, silence gives emotions time to cool. It creates space for reflection, for both sides to realize what really matters. Sometimes the best thing you can say in a conflict is nothing at all. Imagine a couple in the middle of a heated argument. Voices are raised, blame is thrown around, and tension is climbing. Then one of them chooses silence. Not the cold, dismissive kind, but calm, intentional silence. That silence can instantly shift the energy. It signals, I value this relationship more than winning this argument. Over time, this practice doesn't just end fights. It strengthens the bond. Because silence says what words often cannot. I care enough to pause. I care enough to listen. I care enough to wait until love speaks louder than anger. How quiet presence builds trust. Silence in relationships isn't only about resolving conflict. It's also about building trust in everyday life. Think about the people you feel safest with. Chances are they're not the ones who fill every silence with chatter. They're the ones you can sit with in total quiet and still feel connected. That's trust. Quiet presence says, I don't need to perform for you. I don't need to impress you. I can just be myself and you'll still be here. Parents build this kind of trust with children, not by lecturing nonstop, but by sitting quietly, listening, and being present. Couples build it by spending time together without needing constant conversation. Friends build it when they share moments of silence that don't feel awkward, but comforting. This kind of silence becomes the glue of relationships. Because when you can trust someone in silence, you know their presence is real, not dependent on words, but on connection. When silence speaks louder than words. There are moments in life where silence carries more weight than any speech could. When a loved one is grieving, silence often means more than 1,000 well-meaning words. Simply sitting with them, holding their hand, or being there in quiet support speaks volumes. When a friend is going through hardship, silence says, I'm here with you. You don't have to explain. You don't have to be strong. I see you. In love, silence can be the deepest form of intimacy, the quiet comfort of lying next to someone you care about, the unspoken bond of a look across the room, the silence between words that says, you are understood. Even in friendships, silence creates shared meaning. Think about road trips with a close friend where music fades and both of you sit quietly, enjoying the moment. No words are needed because the connection is already there. Practical ways to use silence in relationships. Pause before responding. In an argument, give yourself a few seconds of silence before replying. It prevents escalation and shows you value the relationship more than being right. Silent support. When someone you love is in pain, don't rush to fill the silence with advice. Sometimes quiet presence is the greatest comfort. Silent activities. Spend time with loved ones in quiet settings, reading together, walking, or just sitting outside. These moments create deep bonds without words. Listen without interrupting. Silence is the key to true listening. Resist the urge to jump in. Let the other person fully express themselves before you respond. Embrace comfortable silence. Don't fear quiet moments. If you can sit in silence with someone and feel at peace, that's a sign of a strong bond. Silence doesn't mean absence. It doesn't mean neglect. It means presence in its purest form. In relationships, silence is the unspoken language of love, trust, and connection. It's the pause that heals arguments, the stillness that builds trust, and the quiet moments that say more than words ever could. So the next time you're tempted to argue, to over-explain, or to fill the silence with noise, stop. Lean into the quiet. Let silence do its work. Because in the end, silence may be the strongest voice your relationships will ever hear. Chapter 8. Silence in the Game of Power. In the game of power, words are currency. Spend too much of them, and you go broke. Guard them carefully, and you grow rich. The most powerful people throughout history were not the loudest. They were the ones who knew when to remain silent. Think of great leaders, CEOs, generals, or negotiators. They rarely wasted words. When they spoke, people leaned in. Their silence created mystery, authority, and respect. Because silence is not emptiness, it is presence, it is control. And in power dynamics, control is everything. Why the most powerful people speak less? Why is it that those with real influence often speak the least? It's because talking too much reveals too much. Every extra word gives away a thought, a weakness, or an intention. People who talk endlessly usually think they are showing strength, but in reality, they are showing all their cards. They leave nothing hidden, nothing mysterious. And when you are predictable, you are powerless. The powerful understand that silence forces others to reveal themselves. While others are talking, you are listening. While others are exposing their emotions, you are studying them. While others rush to fill the silence, you are gathering leverage. When you speak less, every word you choose to share gains weight. People remember it. People repeat it. People respect it. How silence creates mystery, authority, and respect. Mystery is magnetic. People are drawn to what they cannot fully understand. When you are silent, people wonder what you're thinking. They project their own assumptions onto you. Often they assume you know more, are stronger, or are more confident than you actually are. This is why the quiet person in the room often commands more respect than the one who won't stop talking. Silence creates an aura. It signals that you are in control of yourself and therefore in control of the situation. Authority is not about volume, it's about presence. A calm, silent pause can command more attention than a loud emotional speech. Respect is not demanded. It is earned when people realize you don't need to prove yourself with endless words. Think about a judge in a courtroom. They don't need to shout to have authority. Their silence between words, their measured pace, their restraint, all of it builds respect. That is the power of controlled silence. Learning to control what you reveal and what you conceal. Power comes from discipline, especially the discipline of your tongue. Not everything you think should be spoken. Not every truth should be shared. In fact, the less you reveal, the more powerful you become. When you practice silence, you control what others know about you. You reveal only what strengthens your position. You conceal what could weaken it. In negotiations, silence forces the other side to speak first, often giving away their real position. In leadership, silence makes your decisions appear more thoughtful and deliberate. In relationships, silence protects your boundaries and prevents manipulation. The rule is simple. Reveal less, conceal more. Speak only when your words move the situation forward. Let silence do the rest. Practical applications of silence and power. Here are some ways to use silence strategically. In conversations, don't rush to respond. Pause. Let others fill the silence. You'll learn more than if you spoke too quickly. In negotiations, after making an offer, stay silent. Most people can't handle the tension and will speak first, often giving you the advantage. In leadership, use silence before making big decisions. It signals thoughtfulness and builds trust in your judgment. In conflict, Instead of shouting back, stay silent. Your calm restraint will make the other person appear out of control. In daily life practice, revealing less. Don't share every plan, goal, or struggle. Let your actions speak instead. The silent edge. Here's the hidden truth. In the game of power, the less you speak, the more you control. The person who controls the silence controls the room. They are the one others wait on, watch closely, and wonder about. While others are wasting energy proving themselves, you are conserving yours. While others are exposing their weaknesses through words, you are protecting your strength. And when you finally do speak, your words carry the weight of silence behind them. They cut through the noise. They shape the outcome. Silence is not withdrawal. Silence is not fear. Silence is not weakness. Silence is power. Silence is strategy. Silence is respect earned without demanding it. Learn to master silence, and you master yourself. Learn to master silence, and you master influence. Because in the game of power, the loudest voice is rarely the strongest. The real strength belongs to the one who can say less and control more. Chapter 9. Silence and Spiritual Strength. In our modern world, silence is rare. We are surrounded by constant noise, phones buzzing, notifications flashing, television playing in the background, voices competing for our attention. And yet, deep inside, every human being longs for stillness. Every one of us craves peace. That peace is not found in the noise, it is found in silence. Silence is more than a communication tool, more than a strategy for success. It is also a spiritual practice. It is the doorway to self-awareness, to inner strength, and to something greater than yourself. Silence is a path to self-awareness. True self-awareness doesn't come from distraction. It doesn't come from scrolling, talking, or even chasing achievement. It comes from turning inward. When you sit in silence, you meet yourself in a way that noise never allows. You notice your thoughts, your feelings, your patterns. You begin to understand not just what you do, but why you do it. For many people, silence feels uncomfortable at first. That's because it reveals the truth we usually cover up with noise. Silence shows us our fears, our worries, our regrets. But if you stay with it, silence also shows you your strength, your wisdom, and your higher purpose. In silence, you stop pretending. You stop performing. You simply are. And that is the beginning of true spiritual strength. Connecting with your inner self through stillness. Silence is not empty. It is full of insights, full of answers, full of connection. When you quiet the outside world, you start hearing the voice inside. That inner voice is not loud. It does not shout. It whispers, and it only speaks when you are still enough to listen. This is why so many great leaders, thinkers, and spiritual teachers throughout history valued silence. They understood that stillness is the space where truth rises. Ralph Waldo Emerson, one of America's transcendentalist philosophers, once wrote that, "The soul always hears an admonition in such reverence as is never heard in the bustle of life." What he meant was simple. When the world is noisy, you can't hear the wisdom within. But in silence, the soul speaks. Stillness connects you to your deeper self, the part of you that is calm, strong, and unshaken by circumstances. And when you live from that place, you are no longer easily broken by the ups and downs of life. The role of silence in meditation, prayer, and spiritual growth. Every spiritual tradition, no matter where it comes from, honors silence. In meditation, silence is the foundation. You close your eyes, still your body, and let your mind settle. The silence creates space between your thoughts, and in that space you find peace. In prayer, silence is just as powerful. Prayer is not only about speaking to God, it is also about listening, and the listening only happens in silence. Many people miss this. They fill prayer with requests and words, but forget that sometimes the greatest connection comes in quiet surrender. Even in churches, temples, or places of worship, silence is sacred. Think of the hush that falls over a congregation before prayer begins. That silence prepares the heart. It makes the spirit ready to receive. Silence is not about isolation. It is about connection. Connection to yourself, connection to others, and connection to the higher power you believe in. And this connection gives spiritual strength, the kind of strength that keeps you grounded in storms, patient in struggles, and hopeful in dark times. Practical ways to use silence spiritually. Here are some simple ways to bring silence into your spiritual life. Morning stillness. Begin your day with a few minutes of silence. No phone, no talking. Just sit, breathe, and set your heart before the noise begins. Silent meditation. Spend 10 minutes a day in silent meditation. Focus on your breath and let your thoughts pass without judgment. Silent prayer. Instead of filling every prayer with words, try moments of pure silence. Let your heart listen instead of only speaking. Silent reflection. At the end of the day, sit in silence and reflect. Ask yourself, what did I learn? Where did I grow? What can I release? Sacred silence in nature. Go for a walk in nature without music or distraction. The quiet of creation often brings the soul closer to the Creator. These small practices open the door to greater awareness, deeper peace, and spiritual strength that grows day by day. The strength of stillness. Here is the truth. Silence is not an escape from life. It is a way of living life more deeply. When you cultivate silence, you are not running from the world. You are preparing yourself to face it with courage. You are sharpening your awareness, deepening your spirit, and connecting with the strength that lies within and beyond you. In a noisy world, silence is a revolution. It is a choice to step away from distraction and step into meaning. And in that choice, you find a power that noise can never give you. The power of peace, the power of clarity, and the power of spiritual strength. Chapter 10. Flowing with life, making silence your daily power. Life is full of choices, challenges, and opportunities. Every day you are faced with decisions that shape your future, some small, some life-changing. Most people rush through these moments, caught up in noise, emotion, and distraction. But those who master silence find a different rhythm. They don't force life. They flow with it. Silence is not just a tool you use in special moments. It's not just for conflict or creativity or prayer. Silence is a way of living, a daily habit, a guiding principle that allows you to move through life with clarity, strength, and ease. When you turn silence into a lifestyle, you stop fighting against the current and start flowing with it. And when you flow with life, everything begins to move in your favor. Turning silence into a lifestyle habit. Habits shape who we are, and silence, when practiced daily, becomes a habit that changes everything. Imagine starting your mornings not with a flood of noise, but with quiet. Imagine carrying silence into your workday, not by refusing to speak, but by choosing your words carefully and creating space to think. Imagine ending each evening in silence, reflecting, unwinding, reconnecting with yourself. When silence becomes part of your lifestyle, it transforms how you live. You stop reacting impulsively and start responding thoughtfully. You stop chasing validation and start building confidence from within. You stop filling every moment with noise and start appreciating peace. Small, consistent practices make this possible. A few minutes of quiet reflection each day, a pause before major decisions, time away from screens, just breathing, thinking, or observing. Over time, these habits reshape not just your mind, but your entire life. Using silence to align with opportunities and decisions. Opportunities don't always come with flashing lights and loud signals. Often they arrive quietly, disguised as small decisions, chance encounters, or subtle changes. If your life is too noisy, you'll miss them. Silence tunes your awareness. It sharpens your instincts. It helps you recognize opportunities that others overlook. When you sit in silence before making a decision, you're giving yourself the chance to hear what truly matters. You're filtering out fear, ego, and distraction, and connecting with your deeper wisdom. Think of silence as your internal compass. In the noise, it's easy to lose direction, but in silence, you can sense where to go, what to choose, and when to act. Many successful entrepreneurs, leaders, and creators attribute their best decisions to moments of stillness. They didn't rush. They didn't panic. They waited in silence until the right path revealed itself. You can do the same. Before every major choice, career, relationships, investments, pause. Step into silence. Let it guide you. The more you practice, the more you'll find that silence leads you toward alignment, where decisions don't just feel right. They are right. How silence makes everything flow in your favor. When you embrace silence, life begins to flow differently. You stop pushing against resistance and start moving with purpose. You stop trying to control every outcome and start trusting the process. Here's why silence shifts the flow of your life. Silence creates clarity. When your mind is clear, you see paths others miss. That clarity leads you to better opportunities. Silence builds patience. Instead of forcing results, you let them develop naturally. Patience allows success to come in its own time. Silence deepens connection. By listening more and speaking less, you build stronger relationships, attracting people who trust and respect you. Silence increases resilience. Life will test you, but silence gives you the strength to remain calm, steady, and unshaken. Silence aligns you with flow. When you are silent, you stop swimming against the current of life. You start moving with it. And when you move with the flow, doors open, opportunities multiply, and success follows. This is not magic, it's alignment. Silence aligns your mind, your decisions, and your actions with the rhythm of life itself. Practical daily ways to live in silence. To make silence a lifestyle, you don't need to retreat from the world. You just need to weave quiet moments into your everyday life. Here's how. Start and end your day in silence. Just 5 minutes of stillness in the morning and evening sets the tone for clarity and calm. Use silence before decisions. Whenever you face a choice, pause. Even a few seconds of silence can prevent mistakes. Practice silent listening. In conversations, focus on hearing fully before you speak. This builds trust and influence. Create tech-free zones. Set aside time without phones, music, or screens. Let silence breathe. Take silent breaks. Step outside, close your eyes, and listen to nothing but your breath. These pauses reset your energy. Over time, these simple practices become second nature. Silence becomes not something you do, but something you live, flowing with life. When you make silence your daily power, you stop forcing outcomes. You stop chasing what isn't meant for you. You stop letting noise control your emotions and decisions. Instead, you learn to flow with life. You align with the right people, the right choices, and the right opportunities. You develop the discipline to wait, the wisdom to listen, and the strength to act only when it matters. And when you live this way, life begins to favor you. Because silence isn't just the absence of sound, it's the presence of power. A power that clears your mind, strengthens your spirit, and guides you toward everything you are meant to achieve. So embrace silence, not as a temporary practice, but as a way of life. Make it your daily power. Let it guide your choices, shape your relationships, and carry you through challenges. When you live in silence, life doesn't fight you. It flows with you. And when life flows with you, everything moves in your favor. Conclusion: the power of saying less and becoming more. We've reached the end of this journey, but in many ways it's only the beginning. Throughout this audiobook, we've explored silence not as weakness, but as strength. Not as emptiness, but as power. And if there's one truth to carry with you, it's this: mastering silence changes everything. We began by uncovering silence as a language beyond words, a form of communication that carries weight and influence. We saw how the noise of the world can cloud our judgment and drain our focus, while inner silence restores clarity and calm. We learned that silence sharpens listening, making us more effective in relationships, business, and leadership. We discovered the strategic pause, the hidden weapon in conversation, negotiation, and conflict. We saw how silence builds self-control, transforms frustration into patience, and turns impulsive reactions into thoughtful responses. We explored silence as a source of creativity and clarity, where solutions emerge and ideas are born. We looked at its role in relationships, how quiet presence can heal, strengthen, and deepen bonds. We examined silence in the game of power, where those who speak less often command the most respect. And we reflected on silence as a spiritual force, a path to self-awareness in connection with something greater. Finally, we saw how silence becomes not just a tool, but a way of living, a daily habit that keeps you aligned with opportunities, decisions, and the natural flow of life. The lesson is clear. Silence is not passive. It's not about hiding or holding back. It's about choosing when to speak and when not to, choosing clarity over confusion, strength over reaction, wisdom over impulse. Silence is full of answers, full of lessons, full of opportunities. It's the space where growth happens, where discipline is built, and where direction reveals itself. And now the choice is yours. You can move forward as most people do, filling every moment with noise, chasing validation, drowning in distractions, or you can take the path fewer choose, the path of silence, the path of clarity, power, and flow. If you make silence your ally, you won't need to push as hard. You won't need to fight for every inch. Life will begin to align in your favor. Not because everything becomes easy, but because you become stronger, calmer, and wiser. So let this be your call to action. Master silence. Practice it daily. Protect it fiercely. Carry it into your decisions, your conversations, your relationships, and your moments of challenge. Say less, but become more. Because when you live in silence, you don't just move through life, you flow with it. And when you flow with life, everything moves in your favor.